Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Present.
Here.
Approval of minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of claims.
Motion to approve claims.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of payroll.
Make a motion to approve payroll.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
What did you have, Michelle?
Hmm?
Did you say aye?
Aye.
Treasurer monthly report interest. Linda Pruitt, treasurer of the Green County.
The June interest for the main account was $151,232.59. The funds that we have in Trust Indiana was $8,161.88 for a grand total of $159,394.47. And that brings the 6-month total to $836,185.18.
Do you have anything else about your tax sales and stuff?
Well, we have one scheduled, September 21st. As usual, people didn't know they were that far behind or whatever when they get the letter, so angry calls and that kind of thing, but
What time is the sale on the 21st?
10.
10.
Have you didn't notice any changes in the overall? Is it the same reason, the same amount of late paying, or is it got better, got worse?
We certified over 200, so that number will come down, but who knows how much.
And we're using the same company as what we should.
That's all right.
I think they did a good job.
And our tax sale attorney, Alex Bruckenmeister, something like that. He's great. He'll be there if he can be. He's not in court that day.
I also wanted to ask you, is joint meeting applying for that money, that $700,000 that we have appropriated for them?
Not yet, no.
Any other questions for Brendan? Public comment. There's any public comment? You're welcome to voice your concern now. If you don't do it now, you can do it again. Come from the podium and address and tell us who you are and what you want to speak about.
My name's Nancy Roberts, and we live behind the Union 841 Training Center. We have a 28-acre lake. We share it with 2 other occupants. We received a letter last Thursday from the EPA, and they're wanting to put carbon dioxide sequestration wells in, and it's going to hit our property. So I've made a few phone calls and talked with Mr. Luther, found out that there was a letter sent, and he didn't know anything about the letters that were sent out. And I know that I've spoke to several people around our area, and they've all received them. He didn't know anything about the letters being sent out, but he did state that there was a letter sent on behalf of the commissioners to support this.
There's a letter sent asking for support.
And it was my understanding that there was a letter sent stating that there was support, the commissioners were giving support.
No, I did not agree with that and did not support that.
RJ sent a letter in support of it.
Yeah, I think maybe the letter you're referencing is the economic development letter from Doug Hess and Economic Development. There was a letter sent from them supporting the carbon project in northern Vigo County. I believe that's what you're referencing.
It's also in Vermilion County.
Yes, but the big project is in northern Vigo County, and that was sent from the economic development, and that's probably what you're referencing. But if you're referencing individual commissioners, I did offer a letter of support for that as one commissioner, but our economic development office
Okay.
sent that on behalf of, I would assume, economic development and Doug, I don't think he's here tonight, but that might be the letter you're referencing, because none of us can act on, the board of commissioners. It takes a majority for that
Okay.
letter.
But you did send a letter?
I send a
before?
personal letter, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you after the meeting or anything like that.
Well, can I just ask you a question then, sir?
Absolutely.
Do you know any of the details of what they're proposing? Do
I-
you realize that they're proposing 1.67 million metric tons of carbon dioxide per year for a total of 12 years to be injected into the ground?
I know some of the details. I can't say off the top of my head without looking at the documents that were sent to me, all the details. I would hate to speak out of turn on that.
Right. I mean, I had to look that up. A metric ton is more than a normal ton. It's 2,204.623 pounds. We poured our heart and soul and every penny we have into our land.
Mhm.
And into a house that when we bought it was unlivable, and we made it a home. And now they're wanting to we're right in the middle of this area, this map that they've sent. So they're wanting to put all of this underground.
Mhm.
And they can't guarantee, nobody can guarantee that that's not going to come out in our lake. It's not going to come out.
Yeah. And like I said, I'd be more than happy once I read some of the stuff that was sent to me. Be happy to talk to you guys after the meeting or sit down and have another discussion. But the other letter you're referencing did come from economic development, though.
Okay.
And I don't know if Tim or Britton want to speak on behalf of that letter or not. I don't know.
I spoke to Doug Hess about that because, number one thing, is when you're making decisions from a commissioner standpoint or even from economic development, things that impact the community needs to be vetted. And that letter was sent from economic development, didn't have my approval.
You're a speaker. I don't think anybody can hear you.
For Dawn, so you can hear me. The letter that was sent from economic development, I talked to Doug Hess later about it, that things like that, I did not approve it. Number two is, if there's something like this that impacts the whole county and community, I think it needs to be discussed publicly before any decision is made. And so I did not support that letter. Alan Morrison called me and sent me a thing and wanted me to sign a paper, and I told him I won't sign it. Because there's too much stuff that here needs to be talked about locally with the community. These things a lot of times things happen and they try to push it through without the public being
Right.
involved. And I talked to EPA about it, and EPA told me they would be having hearings coming up.
There's going to be hearing August 10th.
Yeah.
At ISU about it. But of course, I don't understand a lot of the legal stuff that they're talking about, but it looks like the EPA has already given them the initial permits to proceed to the next stage of getting the final permits. So once it reaches that stage, is there any way that it can be stopped, or do we just sit back and say, do what you want with our land?
The problem I always have is I have a problem with the state of Indiana overriding local decisions and local direction. The windmill issue last year, I believe it was 2 years ago, the state came in and tried to ram it down our throat to take away local zoning, local control, and establish what the rules are. And we fought it all the way to the State House, and we as commissioners, I think all of us was in favor of that, support of that. It was just wasn't right. And here's another situation, I believe, that the state is coming in and they're saying, we're going to do this, and they're going to try to ramp it down our throat. I hate to say that.
Yeah.
And there's different issues there. A lot of issues with that, as far as just people need to be educated on all this. And it hasn't came out, and a lot of people don't know what CO2 is, and they don't know, the good, the bad. There's always talk, and no one really knows what the truth is. So my standpoint right now is I think it needs to be vetted, it needs to be talked about, it needs to be open, and the public needs to be informed before anything happens. And your voice is important. You have a right to. I know how it is. I mean, when stuff came up, I thought they was going to do stuff on my property and depreciate my property, and I didn't appreciate that either. And also, there's the support of it. Though people do not know the amount of funds that actually go into them projects and the amount of money that actually is taken in by the company that's putting that in the ground, and they're offering so small amount of money to property owners. It's shameful. It really is, even talking about it. But I'm for open conversation, and I think everything should be vetted. And I did have a phone call and did have a letter from Alan Morrison, and I rejected it. I told him I can't do that. I said this has got to be vetted and needs to be discussed with the people. And that's.
Well, I have found out that the state, all the senators and everybody is for it. I don't know where Vigo County stands. I've sent a letter to one of their councilwomen, Vicki Wager,
Right.
but I know that they've already offered them tax abatements, what I've heard on Channel 10 News.
Yeah, it's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's billions of dollars. And also, I wonder, where's the benefit of Romaine County in this? You know, I mean, even if they're trying to bring something in, why ain't they addressing the county and giving us some economic,
Right.
So I'm looking deeper into it.
Okay. I appreciate that.
And,
I was just shocked that we got the letters and you guys didn't know the
No,
letters
we
had even
didn't- we
been
didn't
sent
know.
out until I called about it.
Yeah, that's-
I talked to Penny tonight, and in zoning, she had not heard anything about it until yesterday.
Yeah.
That just, something like that just really surprises me.
And I think that the EPA and those in government should have been sending stuff here to the county commissioners, and where we could have addressed it too, but it hasn't happened. So, but first thing, I think everybody needs to know what it's about, and what it does, and educate themselves so they can make an informed decision. But like I said, when I talked to Doug Hess about this, I told Doug, I said, if you ever send anything out that impacts the whole county, I think it needs to come through the commissioners for approval.
Right.
Because you're speaking as on behalf of the whole county when you do that. And it's best to find out what everybody, everybody's together on that.
And in good conscience, sir, how could you send a letter of support without knowing?
Yes, I was gonna read whenever Tim was
details?
done, I was gonna briefly touch base with you again. This letter of support that Representative Morrison had sent out was, a letter of support, for the economic impact of this, and in multiple discussions, this wasn't something where someone called me and I immediately said I'll sign a letter, in 30 seconds, because that's just not who I am. I do my due diligence, I look things up, and in my conversations with Alan, I wanted assurances that there would be public hearings for the community and that they would understand the impact of these things. But as a commissioner, after weighing what I had read and what I've been told, I felt like, signing a letter that says, hey, I support this project that brings this amount of economic impact to Vermilion and Vigo County, I was in support of that. Now, come public hearings in August, if there's things brought to light that, I don't agree with, and things that are, that are showed by the citizens, or whether it's the EPA, I very well may rescind my support of that. But I don't do anything on a whim. I do my research, and I appreciate you coming to this. And like I said, if you want to talk to me more, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to you guys.
What I would recommend is, the EPA said is having a community meeting in
August 10th.
Okay. I think I will make some phone calls with them and tell them they need to come to our county too, and talk directly to those, especially out in your area. I'm trying to think of where you live at from the operators. You live south of the operators?
Directly behind them, directly west of the operators, behind the operators building.
Okay, Stoltz lives out there by you, don't he?
We moved in 19, so we don't know very
Okay,
many
he lives on the
people.
north side.
We bought the commonly known as the Duck House.
How many houses, how many other people receive letters out there that you know of?
I'm not sure how many altogether. I know that the 3 people that own our lake, one of them is from around Chicago, Illinois area, and then the other one, he has a cabin there, and then the other one is on our side of the lake, his permanent residence also. They received, all 3 of the people that own, there's a road that divides the 2 lakes, the people on the North Lake received letters. The Union, 841 operating, they received a letter.
Have they offered any conditions or anything?
I think you guys got a copy of the letter.
That's okay.
What
That's
I got,
okay.
doesn't really say anything. It just tells you
Okay.
what they're doing, and,
I got a little bit of experience. I'm probably one of the very few people that got some experience on these wells. I worked for a year and a half in Princeton, Indiana, overseeing the injection wells for Duke Energy, and they were 2 mile deep, and they were quite a something. You know, we had to maintain pressure on them every day and check stuff, and
right.
but it's really unique. But like I said, to have them come and speak, and Britt, you want to say your part, and RJ, what do you want to take up all the time?
To be fair, Senator Ford and Senator Deary both asked for comments on the bill.
Morrison, it wasn't Dury.
No, Deary asked.
He did?
He asked me anyway.
Okay, I mean, he was late or something.
Morrison never did ask. Morrison asked for support, but he never did call back, and I never did receive anything from Alan, the representative from the House anyway. But I did get in for. Senator Ford asked for comments. I looked at the preliminary bills. I did have comments on those. I never was able to sit down with Mr. Ford or Senator Ford or with Senator Deary to go over those concerns or those questions, whether they're concerns or not. I'm not in a, there's so many questions I still have. I don't know that I'm in support or not for this project as far as Vermilion County goes. But there's a number of questions that still need to be answered in my book anyway, and there's some things that concern me. Doesn't mean that they're valid concerns, but they concern me anyway at this point. Still a lot of questions on my end. I think I relayed almost everything I knew. Some of it, what I told you the other day, was true, and some of it wasn't in this final EPA document. So for what I knew before, I did meet with Wabash Valley about a year and a half ago. They went over, and about the same thing was said at that point in time, except I thought there was a carrier gas or a carrier fluid with this, as opposed to being just pure CO2. It still looks like it's maybe liquefied. Again, I don't know. I do have concerns about the operating pressures and about how they've maybe put this into a 2 mile circle around the wellheads. Some of this
to stay there.
Well, there's concerns I have about being able to draw a circle on a piece of paper and say these are the boundaries in which we're going to do things. So I guess it works for a corral, but I'm not so sure it works for a gas. So anyway, still a lot of questions, and I do, if you don't, does need to be public comment. If there is no public comment, EPA will move directly to construction, or they'll authorize construction. DNR still has to come in with their promulgation of rules for them to operate in, but that'll be about the same way as like the Coal Mining Act went and so forth. One of the biggest concerns I have is that the state of Indiana's accepting responsibility after the initial period here, after 12 years or whatever. So the state of Indiana is taking over all liability for this. I don't know why the state would take on such a liability. I said that before. It was mentioned that the state was going to indemnify the whole project once it got past a certain point, and I still don't understand why the state would take on that responsibility, unless the federal government is more than subsidizing the state of Indiana to do these type projects. I just don't understand that. But maybe we'll find out.
So what I would recommend is, it's none of that went to go to area plan or nothing with it. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, it seems like
I've asked Penny. I asked area planning. I've not got an answer about whether we have any zoning. If this falls into anything, two things. One, our area plan, and I've asked if our area plan be revisited because it wasn't complete. This is one of those type of things that is not in the area plan. There's nothing about wind. There's nothing about solar. There's a lot of things that are not in our area plan. We would rely on the old zoning rules, and that would only be in if there's some type of well issues inside the zoning, and I don't have an answer back on that yet. That I can think of anyway, minus it being an industrial activity happening on agricultural ground that may need a zoning change maybe. I don't know.
So hearing's coming up, and would you want us to try to contact them for them to, I think they ought to come to our county, have a meeting too. I mean,
They're
two
only,
counties.
by the statute, or by what they passed, they only have to have one meeting, or the one meeting in one of the counties that it's, so. This is actually a special law for Vigo County and
Yeah.
Vermilion County. This is not for the state of Indiana. This is, and it, the way it reads is that they can have this hearing, but it can be in Vigo County, it can be in one of the counties. So, and it sounds like it's gonna be in Vigo County, so.
But there's a large amount of money involved. I mean,
Right. I understand that.
large amount of money.
I don't know what advantages to Vermilion County there are. There might be some royalty advantages to some of the property owners. I don't know to what extent that Vermilion County,
That's something I
As a
think
player.
that I want to see addressed, is what's the benefits, even in Vermilion County. I mean, if they do it, I mean, to bring something to put in our county, and then, you know, where's the benefit? So there's a lot of questions.
we've had a history of like the coal mining. Well, now the coal's kind of mined out, at least for now. So now what do? We just have the mine ground left.
Mhm.
Now we have gas lines coming through the county left and right. What do we have a benefit to that? They take up space, they take up easements, we can't cross them, etc. We have transmission lines. What does the county gain from that? A lot of this has no employment to the county. At least the Cayuga plant has some employment for now anyway to the county. This looks like another one of those projects that I'm not so sure Vermilion County, other than if some of these workers would move to Vermilion County, there might be some economic benefit to the county. Do you recall some of the things that were listed that more, I assume there was economic reasons for Vermilion County to jump on board with this?
Yeah, and off the top of my head, without going through my documents at home, I don't have those numbers on me or can't.
There were
recall
some
them.
reasons that were listed at one time, but I don't know what those were of why Vermilion County would be interested in this project, but I don't know what those were or are for that matter.
I think one of the questions that I know that I would be interested in finding out is, what will this do to our land value?
Sure.
That's something, that's a serious question that needs to be addressed.
Well, one of the bigger questions I have is not just your land value, but this is, when they put this into the ground, now we have a barrier there. And basically this is a waste product, or that's why I'll classify it as a waste product. So we become a dumping ground for this. Now all of a sudden we can't go, if we have something at 1 mile and 1/10, we can't go through it.
Right.
Or we release that, what happens? So if we find some product that is of benefit to the county or benefit to the world, whatever the case may be, we now have another barrier vertically to that. So it's
They're
like
putting
a
one of the
minefield.
wells in Bible County too, aren't they?
Yes, and from the way I understand it, it's going to be up around the Sanford area, and there's going to be 3 wells at each site. And one is a monitoring well, one is a injection well, and containment well. So, I mean,
They've been doing their homework. They did a seismic study going down Rangeline Road and
Yes.
Hazel Bluff Road
and
and whatever.
1800.
Yeah. And they've not shared that data that I know of with anybody, or I've not seen it anyway. They've had monitoring wells. I'm pretty sure those monitoring wells along 63 are for this project. No surprise NDOT allowed them to put monitoring wells inside the right-of-way, but there are monitoring wells down there, and I can only assume it's for those, for that project, given their location. So it's progressed a long way. I'm hoping it's a good thing. I just don't know.
We'll see about getting a meeting for you, for local Vermilion County residents.
And how would we be contacted to know that there's going to be a meeting? How?
I can give you my number, you can call the auditor anytime. I will
Okay.
put that on my agenda for this, within this next week. I'll make phone calls and try to,
Okay.
if you want to get hold of other people,
Thank you.
see if, I know they'd all want to attend,
Right,
so.
right.
and
After
we-
the
we-
decision's made, you can read it in Clintonian.
We may have a Clinton address, but we would like to get our mail delivered where we live, so. I thank you for your time, and as I shared with Mr. Luther Friday when I was talking to him on the phone, I feel like we're living in a real live Aaron Brockovich movie. I mean, it really does. And I want to ask EPA after 6 years of pumping 1.67 million metric ton into the ground, if they'll come out and drink out of our lake like our 2 neighbors get their water from.
You have concerns, and they need to be addressed. And like I said, I think in anything we do, I remember when the wind thing came up, and I made sure that they was going to have 3 meetings in the county. I mean, anything that is done in our county, people need to know and have time to respond to it and voice their concern, whether they like it or not. Everyone is entitled to that, and I think in this situation, you have a voice, you got property, and you're entitled to that, to answers, you're entitled to voice your concerns.
Right, and I figure we may not, finally voicing this, may not do anything, but at least it's going to open up the dialogue, and at least they know somebody out there's concerned.
Yeah.
So, thank
Give
you.
me a couple days and then contact her, and I'll send you my number later. You can text me
Okay.
anytime,
All right.
and we'll see if we can get a meeting set up.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, both of you. Okay, we're moving on to, anybody else got public comment before we?
Tim, before we go on from public comment, I would have asked for this to be on the agenda, but it just got sent to me today at 3:45. The reason I want to briefly talk about it on public comment is due to the fact that the public utilized this for the last 40 years. I received an email at 3:45 today about shutting down the Cayuga garage for brush dumping for limbs, trees, etc. And I would just like for the public, I mean, if that's well, at the end of the paragraph it says Commissioner Luther and you agree to shutting that down.
And our highway superintendent.
Okay, well that's news to me because I spoke to Mike yesterday and he said he didn't have any issues with it. So I guess I was just a little confused, and I don't understand and maybe one of you guys can help me understand why the need to shut it down if Mike was in favor of it yesterday at like 1 o'clock.
And that's not what he told me at all.
Well,
Neither Colby,
why don't we do it this
Nell
way?
either.
Why don't we put this on the agenda for the next meeting and address it?
Well, I'm just
public comment.
that's fine, but I was just
Yeah, this is really in public comment.
Well, it's an issue because people continue to bring brush in daily, and via this email that we say that they're effective today. There's no longer brush, but the public needs to know that. So I guess my question is, what's the repercussions if someone brings brush in? Is there any repercussions, trespassing, or?
They should just be turned back. They shouldn't be dumping on county grounds.
Well, again, this has just been utilized for 40 years, and I believe it's a good thing for the citizens to have a place to dump brush. And Britton, on one of these here, I don't want to get into too much of this, but there is brush dumping hours in your email that you said there wasn't, but we set those up when I became commissioner within my first month.
I don't think I mentioned ours, but maybe I did. But
Yeah.
regardless, I talked to George Smith. I already knew the answer, but I decided to call George and ask him, well, our county liability is just an unacceptable risk out there for people going out and especially placing this type of material, spring-loaded, whatever it might be, and at any particular time. It's not a supervised activity. This is a regulated landfill. This is an IDM facility.
Yeah, which you can dump brush and stuff in.
And if anything else goes in, we have a problem.
But it doesn't because it's supervised with cameras. Nothing else gets dumped there but brush. But
Regardless,
regardless,
a recommendation, we put it on the agenda and talk about it next meeting.
but in the meantime, is the area shut down because that needs? I need to let my constituents know this evening. And it's a public
Well, our
meeting.
constituents are the county, not
Understood, Britton. And people from all over the county bring brush up there to dump. Hence this big storm we had. Everyone brought them in to dump, just like Vigo County did. So I'm just asking tonight for the public record: is the site at Cayuga shut down for brush dumping, Tim, or is it going to be allowed until the next meeting?
I think it needs to become the decision probably will stay the same, will not change. But I think that if anything, if we're going to do it, we need to give people more time, let them know before we.
That's what I'm.
This has never happened down
I know,
in any
it-
of the
it
other
ain't the South
garages,
End.
Well,
even in Clinton.
I didn't
doesn't
start this.
happen.
This has been for 30, 40 years, but I do believe it's a good use for the citizens. I think even the fire chiefs will agree that bringing brush in and dumping it out of a pickup truck or out of a car is better than burning it in the roadside ditches. And, Fire Chief Wilson and even probably Brent Lewis will agree to that. But regardless, it's a majority of the commissioners, and I don't have an issue with that, but I do have an issue with, me telling citizens tomorrow, hey, this is shut down, and because I received an email, I would have loved to have a conversation with both of you. Instead of just receiving an email, this was never discussed with me.
It never was known until that this was not an activity the county ever I ever dreamed the county would be participating in.
It's been done for years since I became commissioner. I don't know.
Well, I asked Mike about it. I said, how long has this been going on in the county? He says, I don't know. I never heard of it. Colby Nail said, there's people getting in way of equipment, in way of operators. It's a dangerous operation. There's no plan for it. If we have an incident out there, we take the possibility of our county liability insurance being canceled.
No,
That is a real possibility.
I agree, and I talked to George about this, and I agree there's possibilities of issues, but I do believe this could have been discussed between all commissioners and talk about how much of a use this is for the community and how much they benefit from this. And instead of just shutting it down with a vote of just two people via email, I would have much rather had a discussion about it.
If it wasn't an emergency operation, if it wasn't something that was ongoing, that was of such
This is day-to-day
situation,
business.
I would agree that it should be. If the proper thing is to shut down. Now, if you want to have a discussion at another meeting, then we should have that discussion about whether we should open that, but not just necessarily that landfill, but all the landfills. And then what are
I
the
don't
operating?
disagree with that.
Let's
I'm
just put it on it, let's put it on agenda for next meeting.
But in the meantime, if someone asked
In the
me,
meantime,
last
there
night,
need-
someone asked me if they could dump brush at the county highway garage today, and I said, yes, you can, from 7 to 3. My answer is now no, via the other two commissioners have voted to shut the thing down, or the highway superintendent, which had told me something different early in the day yesterday. Because I'm not gonna take the responsibility for shutting something down that I don't believe should be shut down. So if you two wanna tell me what to tell these people that asked me, I'll be more happy to tell them. Because I will tell you, I received
You're
last
bound
night,
to. You're bound
yesterday.
to.
Well, I mean, I received 20 phone calls. I mean, Town of Cayuga used it. The park had multiple trees down at the park, and I mean, do you want me to send them to you guys? Send them to Mike? I mean,
Well,
I can.
even the town of Cayuga is an incorporated city like Clinton. They have their own. These
Well,
incorporated
Cayuga-
cities should
Cayuga
have their
doesn't-
own
Cayuga
facilities.
doesn't have anything, and I think we should be in the business of helping municipalities. The North Main School District.
Then they shouldn't be incorporated.
Well, that's a discussion for
If they
today.
want
I'm
to be a
just,
county entity.
I'm just asking
I'm
Tim.
making a recommendation, we bring it up the next meeting and discuss it.
So people can bring brush in tomorrow, no issues.
No, I don't agree.
If decision's been made, as far as I know, we made the decision.
So we're referring to the email that was sent out at 3:45 today that you and Britton agreed to shut the brush dumping down. That's what we're saying. Today, effective today.
I think there needs to be more notice on it,
Well-
so people know before they do it, give them a week notice or something.
How
Well,
long
I-
does it take to have an accident?
There could have been accidents last
But
40
I'd like
years.
to have the people
Exactly.
notified a little bit ahead of time and give them some time to adjust to that.
Oh
So-
my gosh, guys, this is a county operation. This is an operational thing. This is a county landfill. This is not a free-for-all, bring in your brush, bring in whatever you got and dump it here.
I just-
My recommendation is post a notice and give them a week, and then after that week, then move on. And
I disagree.
We can bring it up at the meeting if we want to.
Well, I mean, we don't need to. I mean, I don't need to bring it up again. I just want something from this meeting to tell the people that ask me, RJ, can I dump? Because you know well as I do, they call you, they call me, they'll call Colby, they'll call Mike, and my response won't change. You know, I want it open, but if it's the majority of the commissioners are shutting it down, if today's what is today, July 18th? So effective July 25th, it'll be shut down.
Yeah, that's what I recommend.
Britton, are you in agreement?
I am not in agreement. We're putting the county at an unreasonable
Brittany,
risk.
We're talking about.
We're talking about the
doing-
county liability
I know, but-
insurance possibly being,
Right.
if with one
We're
incident.
talking about a reasonable thing here. That 1 week, let people know about it and do it. You're not.
There's no
not-
operational, read what it is down there of all the possibilities. There's an
that.
no operational plan, there's no safety plan, there is no supervision, there is.
Well, I can assure you, Britton, in the last 3 years that I've been commissioner there, the most I've seen is someone bring a little trailer in of some brush, and the most time it's utilized is during a storm. And again, the fire chiefs would attest to this, that they love people having a place to dump this instead of them setting it on fire out on
Then
Flatiron
have
Road.
it planned out, and then have it planned completely like a landfill is supposed to have when you have these
Right.
things. This is more dangerous than a landfill for a municipal landfill coming into those
Well,
things.
I would rather we discussed it next week, period, next meeting, but since we already discussed, I'll make a recommendation that when 1 week, the notice will go out and 1 week it'll be effective.
So next Tuesday, the 25th?
Yeah, that's my recommendation.
All right. Even though I disagree with that, I do appreciate the public notice of 1 week, but I still, for the record, I do not agree with shutting this down for the community, and if anything, I would have much rather us said, hey, let's look at a better way to do this, let's get with the RISE, let's look for a location. Georgetown, Illinois has a burn pit, mind you, that they let their community do. It it just seems very wrong to tell the community that we're gonna take away something they've utilized and they haven't harmed anybody for the last 40
And
years.
it's been very wrong for the county to
Or,
perpetuate this type in one
okay.
particular location and not even have it in the rest of the county. It's
Okay.
not even,
I don't-
this is just
We're
totally
moving
wrong.
on this conversation. Is that acceptable? This is just common policy we're making. It don't even have to be discussed or nothing.
you guys what you
So,
want county policy to be.
I'm just saying a week and it'll be effective and
This
that's,
is an operational issue.
yeah, and it shouldn't
So,
have been
so
addressed here.
but July 25th, you guys are shutting it down from any brush being brought in.
Yes, and have to find out some other way of doing that.
Okay. And is there, and Britton,
And the county, I think the county ought to start thinking about some different ways of helping the people, but not openly let people bring something.
I agree with that, Tim, but that wasn't discussed in this email, and I wish there would have been a little more communication by the commissioners on that. But regardless of that,
That's why we're here, is to discuss those things. That's why
We should have brought it
these
up at a regular
meetings.
meeting.
But this wasn't discussed
I wasn't
with
ready
me.
for it. and you-
It wasn't
Yeah.
known
Put
until
it on
this,
here, so.
till this afternoon at 2 o'clock that this was continuing to be an operational issue.
well, I spoke to the insurance and Mike Clark yesterday, and Mike said, RJ, as long as there's insurance, which George Smith confirmed, he goes, I have no issues with that. And if
No, no.
Mike told you something different, then I can't attest to that.
You didn't tell the whole story that George told you about the potential that if we had one incident, it could
Yeah,
jeopardize the county
Okay.
line.
Yes.
You didn't
Okay.
tell anybody that.
Yes, I
You
did.
didn't
That-
tell anybody that we
Guys,
could
in the
increase, now I'm
conversation.
talking. You didn't say anything about the increase in our, if we have an incident, if we don't get canceled, that it will have a significant impact on our rates that
Yes,
we'll be paying.
I knew that George already talked to
But
me
you
about
didn't
that.
tell Mike that.
Mike was
We're
not under
moving
the
on.
understanding
We're
of
moving
that.
on. We made
So
a
you can
decision.
believe
You
what
only
you-
told part of the story.
Britton,
We
that's
made a
inaccurate.
decision, we're moving on.
It's inaccurate, but.
Next.
Sure.
Use of auditorium, the Newport Hill Climb, Newport Church of God, there's never been no issue with that. I think that's something that, just standard, we say yes, right? John?
If you wanna let them use it, that's up to you guys.
You guys have any issue with that?
Is there any other people that are wanting to use it? Do they use the whole facility? The whole
They
auditorium?
just use the auditorium.
I meant the
They've
whole
done it
auditorium.
for years and there's no issue,
have no
I think.
problem
We
if
all,
there's no
we
one
all in favor, right?
people
I have
that
no
wanna
issue with
use
that.
it.
The RISE appointment, we're gonna table that. Appreciate Eddie Thompson, a good man, his,
You know, thank you, Eddie, for your services to the RISE.
Tim, I
as
do have a
did.
question on that. Yeah, I would like to second that. Eddie's done a great job, and I really appreciate him putting his effort and time into the RISE board. His appointment, what is the, I haven't talked to either one of you guys about that. Are we opening that up, or are we soliciting people interested just individually, or do we
I have no problem
recommendation?
opening it up. I mean, it's just part of doing it, but
Yeah.
also it's gonna be, you know, whatever decision we make is.
I didn't know if we had a process we were following, or if it was just the three of us were soliciting interested parties and bringing those names before the commissioners for review.
Let's have that done by the next meeting, open it up so people can apply for that, and at the next
Okay.
meeting, make a decision if that's okay with you guys.
That's fine with me. Well, are you wanting to make a decision next meeting, you said?
Yes.
So, they need to apply, is there a deadline to apply then? You wanna go like a couple days
I have
before?
a Friday before the meeting.
I don't know what's that. 18th.
Hey, man, this month's going away, ain't it? So the next meeting's the 25th? No, wait,
No.
day's 18th, right?
It'd be
So
August.
August,
First, August first.
That's my birthday.
So it'd be the 28th?
Yeah, 28th, say the 28th.
So apply by the 28th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, moving on, the NDOT letter to, we had our meeting with NDOT, and originally they was gonna take the 163 bridge, make it single lane, with lights, and it was a big mess. The Indiana Historical and Preservation people got a hold of the bridge, and they said they wanted one lane and flashing lights on both sides, and we had 2 or 3 meetings here locally, and we had over 450 signatures against it. We got hold of our representative from state and federal levels. They called and assisted, and NDOT changed their mind. So, had a meeting here a while back, and they presented their moving it, open the 2-lane, no flashers, redo the bridge and put it back, but they're still needing letters of support. A lot of people thought since they came in and made a decision, they still got to apply this decision, send it to the historical people for approval. So we still need letters. And I've called Doug Hess about getting, and I don't know, maybe the Community Foundation can send one. I think he would be in favor of keeping both lanes open on 163 Bridge. I mean, that was a real fiasco. It should never even came up, but it did. So if anybody can send letters, I'd contacted Doug Hess. I got Tom Milligan has sent me a letter today of support, and any other community leaders. I will be contacting the City of Clinton to get a letter from them, and any other community leaders or anybody can send letters, please get them to me. I'd like to have them pretty quick, hopefully by
So
the
Tim,
end of
send the
week.
letters to you or to Doug?
Send them to me.
Send them to you? Okay.
And you all, well, I wish you all, both of you would send a letter.
I would, I'll sign one, I'll write one tonight or tomorrow and get.
They don't have to be fancy. And I'll get hold of, we'll also need to get hold of Ashley and get some people from the council to do that also.
Sure.
Okay, moving on. Mark O'Hare, burn ban ordinance.
That's not, unless you want to come up, Mark, apparently we don't need an ordinance to rescind that.
John was gonna read the one that I typed up and make
Oh.
corrections. Is that ready, or?
I don't have it, so no.
Okay. Yeah,
Wasn't
what
even
this
aware
is,
of it, so.
instead of us putting a burn ordinance out or a burn ban ordinance out every time we have a problem, this is a standard ordinance that'll run year round, and
That's
it
the
tells
one.
people how they can and can't burn, and you know, safety of your neighbors, stuff like that. And then if we wanna do a complete burn ban, we can, but this ordinance also has fines in it, and things that law enforcement and the fire chiefs can do to actually stop people from, you know, burning their, wherever, however they feel, and possibly burning down their neighbor's house.
Is this one that's in our packet that was sent to us? Is it the updated one? Okay.
As far as I know, yes.
No, I went in for that too.
Okay, so you
They
you
do
did
have
correct
it,
it
yeah.
already? Okay.
I do have it,
So you guys should have something to review and sign or ask for corrections. That's between you and John after that.
Okay.
I just started a process.
I've,
I'm not an attorney.
I've reviewed it. I don't mind doing this as a first reading tonight unless you guys wanna wait to do a first reading. I will ask one question, Mark, while you're here. The penalty, were those just pulled from somebody else's ordinance or?
I used, I can't even think what the two counties were. I pulled ordinance from two other counties, so I
Okay.
typed that up.
Cause they're not a lot, $50, $100,
No.
but just enough to say, hey, don't burn your neighbor's house down, don't like burn if it's 40-mile-an-hour wind, stuff like that, so.
And if you get $50 today and you're still burning tomorrow, that's $100 every day is an increase. And it says, I believe there's a line after those fines that say if you get to the fourth time, they can, you know, do whatever else they want to do to you.
Yeah.
That's-
What did the fire chiefs and that safety committee have to say about it?
Therefore, having a standard ban, you know, they, as far as like dollar amounts and stuff, we never talked about that.
But they're
That
in
would be-
favor of this
yes,
in general?
Yes, having a ban. Most communities have one right now. I believe Cayuga does, I know Clinton does. You know, so like when we do a county burn ban, you know, they already have their own in place year round, which has fines. So I think it's, right now, if the sheriff came to your house and we had an ordinance, or we had a burn ban in effect, it would just be a common nuisance is what they could cite you for, operating a common nuisance or something like that.
But it takes the sheriff to actually issue a ticket to this?
Well, I believe so. I don't think the chief of the fire department has the authority to issue a ticket, but they could call. I do know, I've talked to some chiefs who thought they did have some type of authority, but we haven't really nailed that down. That might be more of a John question, that, you know, maybe we do this ban and we get it in place, and then 6 months down the road, we add that the fire chiefs have the right to cite people for whatever, you know. But that's not part of what the discussion's been so far.
Okay.
But for citations, it needs to address who can actually issue those type of citations, if
Right,
there are
and
going to be.
the way this is
anything like
written, it
that.
would be the sheriff or say a town marshal, somebody like that would do it.
Have law enforcement authority.
So the fire chief would just call them up and say, hey, I got this problem with this guy.
It takes, yeah,
So,
you're trained for that more so.
yep.
Okay. Everything okay too on the, as far as emergency management with the boat race, everything seems to
Yeah,
be.
we're good on that. We have a meeting on the 22nd, the race is on the 26th. That'll be our final meeting with the plan. Nothing's changing from last year but dates, so it shouldn't be an issue. We didn't really have any problems last year. We did
I
correct some from the
anticipate,
first year.
we went from 25 to 50 boats, I anticipate 100 this year. It'd be a nice event, very nice. event.
Hopefully, it would be terrible to go the other way, but hopefully, you know, we're 75 to 100, somewhere in there.
Yeah, we'll do well. Everything's got to start somewhere.
We do have the after-action meeting tomorrow morning at the jail at 9 o'clock for the storm damage. Okay, does not look like there's going to be a state declaration. There's only, on the state website, there's only 2 counties who have a declaration, but in talking to our liaison for the state, they said there's 3 counties, Clay County is also declared, but I can't find a copy of that anywhere. There are other avenues to get money. I do believe we're going to get our $70,000 threshold met just by the numbers that people are giving me. But I don't think we're going to have a state disaster FEMA claim on this.
Okay.
There are monies available at $70,000.
$70,000 is a county threshold. For us to claim a hardship in a disaster, we have to reach at least a $70,000 threshold. It's $4.44 times your population, so we're like 15.5. It's actually like 69,000 something. But with the city of Clinton's numbers, just to give you a little heads up in the past, and I don't want to sit and talk for a half hour. Okay, in the past, all of our damage has been it's a category C damage, which is roads and bridges. That adds up fast. You know, a culvert costs $30,000, so getting our threshold, and our threshold used to be $56,000. FEMA keeps raising it. Okay, when that kind of stuff happens, and your county is the only one who gets that damage, there is a state disaster relief fund that you can apply for. Paid out in completely different ways than the FEMA. You know, FEMA is a 75 to 25 match. State disaster relief fund, I think, is actually a 50-50 match, but they actually pay for more things than FEMA will pay for, so it actually comes out better. We've settled one time with them on that, and that was like a $300,000. That was the money we found to get that first year's community crossing grant going. Well, when we needed some extra money, we found that had never been put anywhere. But so in the conversation tomorrow, I'm going to explain all this stuff to you guys, and if you decide to declare a disaster, then we'll type it up and get it sent in, and we'll be a 4th county in the state then, and we'll just have to, you know, see what's going to happen, what the governor's going to do, what the rest of the state's doing. You know, most of this disaster cost Duke money or whatever power company's money. It didn't cost individuals except for their home damage, stuff like that.
So I expect there's more than $70,000 in home damage in the county.
Right, and that's not our claim. You don't, the commissioners do not claim home damage for people. That's
Right.
called individual assistance. Okay, they get to do that, the individual with FEMA.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem approving it tonight.
First reading, preferably.
Yeah, I'm okay with the first reading tonight.
So we got to vote on it.
You want to go ahead and name that then?
Verbal, okay.
We can enter it into the record.
It's probably at the top there. Just ordinance number 25.
What the freak is this?
05.
05, you said? All right, for the first reading, I'll read into the record ordinance number 2023-05 by title, and ordinance of the Board of Commissioners of Vermilion County, Indiana, regulatory open burning for the first reading tonight.
I do like your repertoire last meeting about how it really comes down to just practicality and being smart about what you're doing when you're in these type of situations, so I do appreciate that. I think that was spot on.
Just going to make a vote on it.
It's just first reading. We'll vote on it next meeting.
Yeah, we said we would.
Oh, you're wanting to vote on it
Yeah,
tonight?
just get it out. I just want to get it
Oh,
done.
well, I've abstained then. I'm not ready.
Well, we'll just wait then. I don't have no problem. Nothing's going to change. Okay, moving on. Improvement fund application, Dale White.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dale White, CEO of the Western Indiana Community Foundation, which serves Fountain County and Vermilion County. Vermilion County Community Foundation is a part of the Western Indiana Community Foundation. have three representatives with me tonight. I have Kim Eaton, who is our Director of Community Engagement, which includes grants and scholarships. She oversaw our finance process until about 6 months ago, and she's totally in grants and scholarships now. Then I also have President of our board, Chu, from the south end of the county with us tonight. Then also Doc Sutherland, who's a board member from the north end of the county. So any of them could answer more questions than what I can. I got appointed to share tonight. I'm not asking for anything, so I know that as someone who serves on the Fountain County Council, I appreciate your position, people coming and asking for things. So I'm offering assistance if you want to take part of the assistance. So if you choose not to, that's quite all right with us as well. But I listen in on most of the commissioner meetings and the council meetings in Fountain and Vermilion County, familiar with the ARPA money process and how that all rolled out probably last year mostly. And just listened in a little bit that there was some discussion with that the county may have some money that you might want to grant back out into the county. And so I think it's during one of the meetings when I was watching, I texted RJ during the meeting and offered the Community Foundation's assistance with the grant application process, not the awarding of the grants, but just the application process. We'll process nearly 100 grant applications a year, several hundred scholarship applications. We'll award nearly $1 million in grants to our community foundation, almost $500,000 in scholarship monies. And so I kind of knew some of the landmines that the county might run into if you got into the grant application process. And so after I reached out with RJ, then he reached out with Kylie, and we all got together and kind of discussed it a little bit. And what the Community Foundation is willing to do, and again, this is if you choose to do it, you can choose not to do it, of course, but that we have software that we already have. Organizations can apply for a grant through the county. The site would be up on the county website, but the link would take you to our grant application, and it would be specific for Vermilion County government. I think the name of the fund is Improvement Fund, maybe. And so what we would do is just manage that. We can cross-reference with the IRS. Our software does that. We know if a non-for-profit has their tax ID number, if it's been revoked or not, or if they're in good standing with the IRS. So we do that with our grant applications now. And then we would turn the grant applications back to you once somebody submitted the request, and then you would just need to determine how frequently you wanted to review applications. You would need to think through the size of grants that you want to consider. There's some unanswered questions in this document that I put together that only you and the council would make the decision on. And that was the other thing I didn't know. I know you can approve the grants, but I didn't know if the council had to, sign off on your approval for those grants, if there was a threshold or not in that process. And so we'd be willing to do all that for free, for nothing, no cost to the county. But we do know from experience there's step 2 if you chose to do it, and that would be awarding the grant, cutting the check for the grant. Do you do any due diligence yourself prior to awarding the grant? You request follow-up reports from the organizations that you grant monies to. Would you do special check presentations, or would you just write the check and it's done and over with, one and done? So those kinds of things, if we would be involved in that piece, there may be some type of fee that we would assess if you wanted us to partner with you on that. But we're not necessarily asking to do that. But we just know the workload that it would take. And so if some of that took place in the auditor's department or somewhere else, we know that it could potentially be a burden depending on the number and the size of grant request that you receive. So you have some control in terms of the size of requests that you want to receive, how often you want to receive grant requests, and just what level of involvement you want in it. Who can apply? Can your own departments apply? Can someone from the county apply for the new roof at the annex, or to take the cupola off, or for a park in the county? Would you give grants to school corporations for things that they need? So there may be some of those things that you would want to think through, or we could help you think through. So my meeting with RJ and Kylie was just to kind of lift it off the ground and just to see if there was any interest whatsoever. And again, we're not looking for more work, but if there's something that we can do to help the county move it down the road, we're more than willing to do that.
I think Kylie can probably speak to a little bit of this, but what they prepared and what he sent us was just phenomenal, I think. I mean, just besides, like Dale mentioned, some of the criteria, if we want to change some of the criteria and say schools can't apply, or but a lot of this stuff, you take a lot of the work out of it, and you just kind of, you can take the projects in and you'll know from the beginning if they're really interested or not based off how they apply, you know, the work they put into the application. So I mean, besides us kind of changing some of this stuff, I think this is kind of what we were looking for from an aspect of an application process, or at least from my standpoint anyway. I don't know. Kylie, you emailed the whole thing to everybody, right, from Dale? So I don't know if you guys had time to review that or not, but it was probably much better than I could have ever came up with, and I don't know, Kylie maybe could have done it, but not me.
That's exactly what we need. I was concerned about our process, or the lack thereof, I guess, and being able to open this up, and you have the tools, it appears, to be able to fill in those gaps that we, you know, there's a big gap between where we're at and the award. So I think this is something that we will want to work with you on. You mentioned this maybe going beyond the ARP funding. The county also issues monies, I would call them grants in themselves, like to the Vermillion Park Humane Society and to the Historical Society, and I don't know if we have any others that are earmarked with larger funds anyway. But do you do those as well? As I've asked for information, I've never received it from either one of these organizations yet. But yet we still give them money.
Do they write letters to you, or how do you, or is it just in your budget to award the money?
But, well, first it was in our budget, but then Park Vermillion Humane comes and verbally asks for the money. Historical Society, it appears that they just get the money, and we have no idea of where it's spent or how it's spent. It's all in good faith. And same thing with Vermillion Park Humane Society. We don't know how the funds are used or where they go or how whatever. Anyway,
Everybody gets excited awarding the grants. It's doing the cleanup work on getting the reports back, follow-up reports, things of that nature.
Yeah, we surmise where they're going to use it, but we really don't know, or I don't know anyway. Maybe other commissioners know, but I don't know exactly how the funds go.
The Historical Society, I can't speak on that, but the Park Humane Society, when Mark Southwick was in charge, he provided a year-end report every year, and I know this is James's first year being the director, and I'm certain it's the same software or some type of program that James could just as easily send. Mark had it broke down to Park, Vermillion County, how many animals were taken in, how much was spent on medicine, how much was spent on veterinary. I mean, just the whole 9 yards, and you'd be surprised with that shelter. I want to say their operating budget's like over $300,000 a year, and we give, you know, $50,000 to it, so our portion doesn't go very far at all in that. But
anyway, those type things, if you guys, do you do that as well? Or is that that's more of a county function, but
yeah, we do it different ways. And poor Kim, I say we can do everything, and so Kim's does.
Well, it sounds like you do.
She makes it work. So Kim's been with us, she's starting her 20th year. I've been here 19 years. Been 3 decades in the not-for-profit world, so it's really all I know is not-for-profit work. I think, for instance, for the last 8 or 9 years, we do all the grant making for Elanco. They send us a sum of money each year. They approve the grants, but we're the ones who actually distributes the money, do some follow-up with the organizations, do some site visits, depending on how much the size of the grant and those kinds of things. But we assess them a 4% fee for anything follow-up type work, like we send a grant agreement that they have to agree to. We do the follow-up reports, and so a 4% fee. So if they grant $100,000, we get $4,000. So
Sure.
it doesn't cover a whole lot of, you know, what we do. So we would think something would be like that with the county if it is something that you wanted us to do. We're not looking for more money, but it would take us time to do those kinds of things, and so there would be some type of cost to it.
Brenda,
Sure.
there is, the requirements on the follow-up is very vague. I mean, it's not really there, isn't it?
It's all requirements. It's what we would set.
I'm second about the follow-up on low.
The follow-up would be what we would set.
Yeah, and the feds ain't got nothing to do with it. It's we set our own. They gave us the money, they say you spend it, you're responsible for it, and we're not coming back and doing an audit on it anyway.
Well, we may get audited on the ARP, but that we've gone beyond that now. We're beyond that phase.
No, we're talking about an important thing because he's talking about requirements, and this needs to include, if there's any requirements in there for that, it needs to be included in this, is what I'm saying, so. I think you guys do a wonderful job. I know I've worked with you on different projects, and you guys have been wonderful, and it's good when you have a
Put
community.
faces to the name here. You keep hearing and seeing Vermillion County Community Foundation, but never knew.
They say I have a face for radio.
Face for radio.
Yeah. So some things that you'll need to think through, and again, I put it in the document. I don't know how soon you can get back with us on it, but say for instance, we get 10 applications one month. That's going to be a lot of discussion at a meeting, or you review 5 grant applications at a meeting. That's going to take a lot of your time. So and we don't know at this time how many grant applications we're going to get, so it'll be a part of our job and part of your job. We're in the process actually of hiring a director of marketing and communications. It's time for us to do that. So we think we'll get the word out. Like I said, we get 100 grant applications or more a year now, so we think people will apply. And if you have $2 million, I think the requests are going to be more in the range of
Do you think
$25,000, $50,000, $100,000 than.
Do you think it's something you maybe review them quarterly instead of as they come in? If you get a lot of if we get a lot of applications really quick?
Yeah, I think if you do it quarterly, you'll have a lot of applications to review quarterly. And what we've experienced, and feel free to speak up, Kim, is the smaller the grant request, typically the quicker the organization needs the money. So if it's $425 for an ad for the Indiana Festival Guide, the guide goes out in August.
What are you talking
but
about
there's
that
not,
for?
But there's not time.
What are you talking about that for?
There's not time to apply. Then they'll miss the deadline. So some of the smaller grants are real urgent. A lot of our non-for-profits don't have full-time staff, and so we try not to create too much of a burden on the non-for-profits who don't have the staff. So we try to make the process as easy as possible for them. But it's kind of up to you how often you want to review applications. Or
And these
we
are
can
just-
start it one way and we can change it the next
Yeah.
month. It just.
These are basic recommendations. We could alter it what we want to, I guess.
There's a lot of, like I say, imperfect ways to do it. I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it.
I can say we don't have a good way right now.
I noticed it's got churches not involved, not allowed, right?
That's our suggestion. Yeah. But it's your.
Churches do a lot in our community.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do church-based things if it's food pantries, backpack programs, things like that. But you're not going to replace stained glass windows in churches. You're not going to do handicap ramps. You're not going to remodel the daycare probably in a church. Those kinds of things.
But this is what you guys, this is your guidelines.
No, this is our guidelines for you.
Yeah.
We have separate guidelines for what we do for our general grant making. There's some similarities between the two.
The whole thing I always seen this money, I would love to see it be seed money, give them 25% to do something bigger, that, to me, that's creating more value, for the funding, so. But we want to do it right and make everyone know about it. That's the big thing. How do we promote it that people do know about it?
We have social media, we have websites. I don't think it'll be a problem promoting it. I think we'll get the grant applications.
I think the problem we're gonna have is that we don't have enough money, is what it comes down to.
I would like for it to be that way, that much involvement.
Yeah, I think the more ideas you have, there's probably better ideas than what I have, you know, if there's an organization sitting out here. But I think, Dale, from us, you just need to find out if we want to change any of these guidelines, because is it my understanding it's all ready to go, the process?
By the end of the week, we could make it live. We could have a
Okay.
document for you to have on your website, kind of a frequently asked questions.
You have it?
We could have the link that people can start going to. We could get that to Eric at Tony.
How much is our website used? Do we have a count now of how many actual users we have a month on the website?
Oh, I forgot the first 2 pages.
We don't
I
know.
don't know if they track how many,
Okay.
how many people.
I'm afraid that our website's not used very well to date.
I can ask for it.
I just have that feeling that people are not it's getting better, but in the past it's not been a very productive website, and I think it's just in the process of maybe
Well, Grant,
growing.
Rick, make some more recommendations to make it better.
Well,
I
I
think
think this
tonight-
is a good idea. If we're going to solicit more than what the county commissioners have alone spends that money, plus a little more. But if we're going to solicit proposals, if you will, from other entities for this money, I think this gives us accountability for that. So I think this is something that we should tie into for this. And even if it costs us money, we don't have a staff. And because we don't have a staff of doing these things, nor necessarily the know-how for that matter, this is money well spent to make sure that we're getting the dollar value, or that the dollar value is going to what we think it's going anyway.
I make a recommendation,
And this is good for the community foundation. They've done a lot of good
Yeah.
work. I mean, I've just, like I said, it's good to see somebody behind the face of the Vermillion County Foundation, or Vermillion Foundation.
What would happen, just to wrap this up, what if maybe Kim and I had another meeting with RJ and Kylie, and you guys maybe look through some of these questions that I had, that we can get that close to
Close it,
finalizing
yeah.
to get it up on a website,
Yeah.
maybe by 1st of August.
Okay.
We would kind of be ready to go
Yeah,
live.
that's-
with it.
yeah,
And
that's
we
fi-
can change things, as
Yeah.
you know, it's not
That's fine.
irrevocable.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's easy change.
Have we set a time frame for that, the improvement funds? I didn't.
No, I don't think
Just
so.
an open.
We got, what, 2 years or 3 years to spend that?
No, we've
Unlimited.
got forever to spend it.
Okay,
Forever.
okay, well, originally it was, you had a certain amount
So
of time.
before that meeting, I would just
Not that
ask
we
that
won't
the other
spend it.
commissioners send their ideas or recommendations to Kylie or to Brenda, and then that way we can discuss them in there if you guys want to like change something where it says allow churches, or if you want to change anything in the recommendations or add something.
I need a
Thank you.
couple
This
days.
is one of the best things I've heard come in front of us for a long time. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Kim, Doc, anything you wanted to?
No, I was gonna stand up and say anything. He's making an offer here for the foundation. Why reinvent the wheel?
Yes.
He has
Agreed.
something, he can put it online. When I say he, I actually mean him. I'm sorry, but
That's true.
it's out there. People know. We've had students using this for quite a while.
Mhm.
If students are using it, they're becoming adults. And those adults have been helping the students. So people are gonna start using this site once it's known.
Yep.
So why reinvent the wheel? But it's an offer, and
Yep.
he's done a great job presenting it.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank
It's
you.
good to see you, Kim. Every time I call, I hear your voice on there, and I finally see your face. Good to see
Thank
Mr.
you.
Shue
And I
all
think
of
we
you.
do,
Doc.
or it's my vote, if you will, or my agreement that we should proceed with this.
I think I'll proceed, and by the end of the week, if you have any changes or corrections you want to put in it, then let us know.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. Vermillion County Bicentennial,
If we're gonna do something with this, I'd like for us to name a committee or put somebody to get a committee together, something to this effect. Otherwise.
so what was the actual date of that?
February 1st, I think, February 1st, 2nd of, well, that's the actual day that we became a county, but, what, is February 1st, John? You remember?
What's that?
When we became a county?
I don't remember, I looked it up last time.
It's February 1st or 2nd, somewhere right in there. I think it was second, anyway.
I would like to see something, I just don't know to what extent, and of course you need someone, a planning committee, that's someone that people can really
Well,
spend
that's
some
where,
time.
that's where I'm going with this, is that we,
Yeah.
we need somebody to take the horn and,
Yeah, we need to do something.
February 1st, 1824.
okay,
What's the date?
February 1st.
We need to come up with, move ahead on it if we're gonna do it. I mean,
I'd like to do it for the whole year, not just for the February 1st necessarily. Parades in February 1st aren't all well attended, so.
We need to find someone who wants to head that, that's what we need.
How about
So-
Becky Holbert? I'll volunteer her.
She's got enough going on. But yeah, if you want to, I can ask her. In fact, I got called her tonight about some stuff. So.
Yeah, she's wanting to do that other thing, so we can, did you find the monies for that, by the way?
We did, didn't we?
I thought we had monies available for it.
You said you found
Innkeepers,
some-
didn't we have money through the innkeepers tax?
You said we found it. You met with us and said you found it. So let us know at the end of the meeting.
Well, you can give her that good news, and then the other good news is that we have a bicentennial, and she's the head of it.
I will address that. I will address that.
She can read it in the paper.
I will head it up.
Okay, you can head it up too.
I said I will not head it up.
Well, you can find a chairman to head it up then.
I pick you.
Let's move on. From Union Hospital Annex lease agreement. That's we're
This
almost
agreement
there.
was forwarded to y'all. The original one came out about a month ago or a little more. Reiteration came back to them 2 weeks ago. We revised that, sent it back. A week later, they sent back their revisions. Received that back on Wednesday. And I have one revision of which to make, that's to say that we have to have county funding, basically, is the only thing each year. It's a 3-year lease contract, but basically it says that assuming that the county will provide the funds for it. That's the only change I have to the document. RJ, want to take some time and finish up some things on it?
Yeah, I'm still reviewing. That document was, I don't even know how many pages it was now from the beginning. I may be misspeaking, 10 pages. Was it 8, 15? I don't.
14 or
14 pages. Okay, 14 pages. A lot of information to digest. I'm not necessarily against any agreement, but I'm still dissecting, and I'll have my comments and everything back by, what's the day, Tuesday? I will say tomorrow, but then something will come up. So give me at least a couple days, and I'll have mine. I don't know, Tim, have you already reviewed the contract or the lease agreement for that matter?
You mean on the
Annex?
I really didn't see anything wrong with that. I'm just concerned about if the council will get the funding for that. I mean, if there could be any issue, you think could be any issue with the funding?
I called council president, didn't get an answer back on it yet, whether it
Is-
looks like it's acceptable or not, or whether we have
Speaking
the
on
funds elsewhere.
on that current building, is there work being done to it currently?
There was, I assume there still
There was.
is.
On the future.
They painted it, and
Well, there was like a tarp on it this morning.
I think that was from the wind damage.
Oh, was there wind down? Okay, I went down to see my doctor today and see a big tarp on the roof, so I didn't know if there was damage or anything. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have any comments that are going to hold it up per se, but I do have maybe some questions. But if you two are okay with it tonight and want to move forward with it, I won't stand in the way of it.
If it helps any, the original document's the same. Bulk of it was done, you had it for about a month
Yeah.
or more. The changes I made were in red, and you had a couple weeks on that. The blue line changes that we got, we didn't get till Wednesday, and really it's only the blue line changes that you, assuming that you got through the rest of
Yeah.
it, it's only the blue line changes that you need to look at now. That's what they came back marking up my red line changes. So.
And they
Anyway.
changed the payment.
That was part of the red line changes. So they didn't change anything on the payment. They didn't mark anything anyway.
Like I said, if you guys are okay with it and you guys want to move forward on the lease agreement tonight, like I said, I won't stand in the way of it. I'm just still reviewing it. So if it's a matter of timeliness on this, then I would
Well,
leave
we-
you guys to entertain a motion.
How are you on that, Brett? You need that.
August first, we need to, well, one depends if we can find the money for basically up to $30,000, actually $28,000 and some change. Assuming that we don't have any communication drops in any of the offices. There's an indication there is. If that's the case, it drops it down to less than 20,000. But with that, we don't know that. So, do we have monies that it didn't get in front of council last time, so we don't know that council is going to meet before August, whatever date, 14th. That's too late. That's anyway, it pushes us back. I guess it's not too late, but that means we won't make September 1st, and the whole thing will have to be revised, including payment things, to another date. Big deal for me. So were we able to find funds elsewhere that could be utilized for that, assuming we're going to approve the lease agreement?
Before August the 1st?
Well, if we have funds available, they're available now, but
Well, I mean, without an additional.
without going to council, yes, my man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We don't know of any. So it's kind of based on, we have until council decides to either grant monies or not to grant monies on it, so.
Okay.
If they want to wait till the 14th, then we got till the 14th to make an agreement. If they want to meet tomorrow, I guess they'd have to give 2-day notice. And it
Or
has
they
to
go
be
ahead
10
and
days
review
for
it and holler
additional.
and say what, let them know what you think.
Okay, that's fine.
We're 10 days out, apparently.
Okay, I'll let you guys know in the next couple days.
They did want, they do want one of you guys to be at the next council meeting for the EAS. They have questions about the EAS money.
I don't mean to laugh about that, but I'm gonna try not to
Why
laugh.
is the question? We done told what we
Who,
need
do, you,
to
do you know who asked the question? Who?
No, I do not.
Maybe I can call. Maybe I can watch the meeting and see. I guess pretty much my only answer to him is going to be like, who do you want to run the
What
stuff?
else you gonna do? I mean, there's.
Is anybody?
It's
I
not
know.
that's our problem.
Yeah.
We just
No,
got to justify
we
the
done
60,000.
gave a resolution. All I gotta do is say yes to the resolution and move on.
I think, anyway,
But they want at least one of you.
Okay.
So.
If I'm off, I'll be there.
30,000.
So, I'll rock paper scissors for it unless you guys all want to go. But
If you find it, then we can proceed, assuming that you're in agreement with the lease at this point, Tim?
Yeah, I am. I think you've done well on
And-
it. I think you really have.
RJ will.
I'll provide some comments. But like I said, it's nothing that's going to hold it up. It's just if you guys want to approve the lease agreement
Well, it
tonight.
makes a difference because when we sign it, if you have a change, it makes a difference. It could make a difference,
Yeah.
unless it's just an insignificant, like I want an A instead of a B,
Yeah.
whatever.
You might say, let's go ahead, we'll do it, and he can object or tell you, and then you guys work it out.
Yeah,
what the
yeah. If you
difference
guys
is.
want to approve it tonight and just give me till like end of business tomorrow or something, or end of business.
Yeah.
You got till she finds the funds.
Yeah, if you guys want to approve it tonight, that's fine. And I'll
That's fine.
Thursday. There's my deadline.
Literally, it is when we find the funds. It's either
Yes.
council approves the funds or we find the funds elsewhere. So.
I do want to say Britton's done a lot of work on a lot of work, and I appreciate his effort and time he put in. It's going to be a good project, and it's a positive move for our county, organizational-wise. So, okay.
Given our, what is it, that new thing that the state's doing that we're
Ready.
tying into, what's it called?
Ready, Grant?
No,
Oh,
the
you're talking about this-
Board of Health,
The
the
funding?
opt-in thing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're opting in, and this is going to give them space to actually do
Yeah,
that
that's-
process too. or
That's a great
those
thing to
monies.
do. Moving on with the court. Okay, move on.
Okay.
Courthouse annex project delivery. We should, by here in the next week or so, have getting close to the total cost that he's gonna be able to come back and tell us how much it's gonna cost to get it done.
Okay.
So, I think he's done a good job. I think he's conservative and he's doing what's best for the county, so.
You
And
say
we-
we'll have an estimate by then?
I'm thinking it is. He said the other day, he told me a figure, he's getting close to something, and I don't wanna say it yet till he's done with it. But at least I think he's getting close to a
Is it
figure.
going to be something that the county can tolerate or stomach? You
Well, it's
think?
looking, I think it will.
Okay.
I think we'll be happy with it.
Better than the numbers we originally seen.
Which numbers are that?
500,000.
That 500,000 number.
You guys will be happy. Everybody be happy, and everybody will say, yes, that's fine.
499,000.
No, don't even bring that up. All right. We've done well. We've cut our costs substantially.
Sure.
So we'll have that up, coming up. County Highway Organization.
Asset management plan, we've now rectified the mileages between the county, LTAP, and NDOT. Now it's been given to the county foreman and superintendent to verify that the road segments are correct. We have all those listed now. There are segments that we have on there that are not correct, and so we know that. So now we're in that process of taking those road segments and either adding or deleting segments out of that, and then that'll be the last run for the asset management plan. It'll be complete at that point. And then it will be a prioritization. They will go through, and what you guys need to be thinking about, and along with Mike, and you need to discuss this with Mike, is how we want to prioritize these. They'll do a first run prioritization based on their own rulemaking, if you will, for why things get placed where they do is number 1, 2, 3 on down. But you need to be thinking what those rules will be as to how we want that plan to kick out, whether a culvert decides it, whether it's a pacer of 0, a pacer of 7, a pacer of 6,
Good.
on down the line. So those are the things that are going to come up in about 2 weeks. At the end of this week, we should have the plan ready to prioritize, and we will have that first prioritization done.
So Mike has his plan as of.
He doesn't have the plan. What he has is a map of all the road segments. Yeah.
And the foreman have them as well.
Well, we only have one. Mike's getting with the foreman.
Okay, that's what okay.
It'd be good that you guys look at them too, because if you know that we've added something that maybe Colby doesn't know or Mike doesn't know, and our other foreman know.
So can this be shared via email, or is it a hard copy?
No, I tried to get it by email. I wanted it by email, but the file is so large. I don't know why. Let me see what I can do, because they should have been able to pull a layer out and send it to us.
So Mike has a hard copy of it, though?
There's a hard copy.
Okay. I'll ask him for it, or at least maybe he can send me a
But
picture.
I don't have
of
an
it.
electronic copy to give you of all the actual segments.
Okay.
And I don't know why that file is so large, but it's not emailable anyway. And
Okay.
maybe I'll get it in a Dropbox or something like that, but I'm not sure.
And we
you can
should
work
still
with
be
it.
able to access this, right? The asset plan?
We will, eventually.
Well, I asked Thrive the other day because I had trouble accessing it in the beginning when they told us we had access to it, and she said just to log back in, but I didn't know if anybody else.
We'll get that rectified. The problem there is that you have they give you permission. It sits in their cloud right now.
Okay.
They give you permission to get in the cloud. Well, that cloud closes in a week, 2 weeks, 2 days. I don't
Okay.
know what time. Well, if you don't get in there in that amount of time,
That's
you're
what she
locked
told
out.
me, yeah, because I went in and I'm like, my password is not letting me in, so I don't know what else you
Well,
can
that's what is happening, is that once they give you permission, you have, I
X
don't
amount of
know what
time.
the amount of time is, whether it's a day, an hour, or a week, whatever. But
Okay.
most likely that's the issue. But yeah, then we also need to decide where we want that plan to reside. I would assume that we would want it on some county system to have it residing on, but and maybe it would be the GIS network where that would reside, maybe not. But we have to be able to manipulate it if we add things or take things away in the future.
Okay.
So that's where we stand with it. So in 2 weeks, you need to be thinking, at our next meeting, you guys need to be thinking about what type of rulemaking you want to set so it prioritizes things automatically. Once we get done with that, the idea is to go on to town halls, and I want to be able to present this to different places, where that might be, maybe the same places we did the wind and solar things, and let people look at the prioritization of this. Eventually, we're not there yet, but then they can see, well, my road's number 100, why isn't it number 1? Or they can see where it falls, and what the rhyme and reason behind it. So it takes out basically the arbitrary nature of us just saying, well, we're going to do this, that, but we don't have a good reason necessarily. This will give us that reason to say, well, this is why it's being done.
Okay.
This is priority, and that's why you're not number 1, you're number 100. So.
Moving on to the Community Crossing Grant 2023 bids analysis status. That was awarded to Wreath Rally, right?
Yeah, it's not been awarded.
I mean, but
That's what we have here. You can help. we've got analysis from Clark Dietz,
Yeah.
the bid analysis of it, unless you guys want to review them,
No,
they're.
I'm fine with it.
Anyway,
I'm just saying,
in fact, it should be right.
so we need to move on this
here.
tonight on this, right, awarding this.
We can, yes, and probably should.
Yeah, it needs to be done as soon as possible, so don't get to the latter part of the year.
The one thing that we don't have yet is the Bridge 31 yet. We don't have the numbers back on it. This is for the HMA. We've already done the Cape Seal and the RPE. This is the HMA and chip seal.
Okay. So, the basis of this is Reith Riley has got the bid on it.
Yeah, the only there is a little bit of difference. Sometimes contractors play games with these things. So in this case, I'll just make up something, but say like tack code, I'm going to give $1, and I'm going to make the HMA $1,000 per yard. Well, whereas the other company will put in $5,000 for tack code and $5,000 for HMA. Well, it ends up that they win because they're at $10,000, but you got to look at what all the components are, because what they do is they say, well, if they have to increase their mileage thing, what does that equal to? Or if they have to decrease their mileage, they can play with that HMA number. So that's just something you need to be aware of, I don't think it makes a difference, but it does. It has happened here, but I don't think it made a difference on the award, or where we probably should award.
I don't know
anyway.
last time we had this done, but I think that I would like Clark Dietz have it keep a closer eye on the temperatures of the product when they're laying it.
We also are going to have to come up with a little additional monies too by the time it's all
$40,000
done.
difference there
Yeah, so far,
from awarded versus what we have awarded.
yes.
If,
And that's not counting Bridge 31, we haven't got that yet.
I'm just talking about this.
Yes.
So that's something that we need to clarify before we award, to make sure that the 40,000 will be there.
Well, our alternatives are that NDOT will have to, if we do not want to do, if we want to back it off to what our award is, the 40,000, less than 40,000 anyway, then we're going to have to decide what roads there are, and then we're going to have to go back and negotiate with NDOT about taking this mileage off. Or we have to find the $44,000 to come up with.
Or
to
if we
make the
talk to
difference.
them about and see what could be, anything could be changed without affecting the contract with them.
With Reeve Riley?
Yeah.
I guess that's an alternative. I don't know that we'll. John?
If we can't really
fill
change
in on here.
anything, yeah.
We have a low bidder maybe to be selected, and Tim's wanting to negotiate $40,000 of that, or some portion of it anyway, up to $40,000 of the bid with Reith Riley if they're a
Of
little
course, we
better.
can't change anything with the state because that, we can't do
So you're
that.
wanting to accept the low bidder's bid, and then once you've accepted it, go to them and negotiate and see if they'll lower some things?
Is that it, Tim?
The thing is, the quote came in, the low bidder came $40,000 over the amount that we have coming, that we have appropriated. So I'm saying, is there any negotiation there? Of course, when you go to community crossing grant, you can't change anything, hardly. I mean, if you change anything, you mess it all up.
It's hard to do.
It's hard to do, and
I mean,
so.
because normally what you do is you just reject all bids as being open.
We don't want to, we want to move forward. If we can get the money or whatever it is, we need to move on this. What happens the last time we got it so far late in the year, by the time we did it, and we had product and putting it down in the cold time of year, and I don't want that again. That's not good. So, could we, if we wanted it, where could we?
I don't know that we can do that. Go back and negotiate a.
Well, let's
Price.
we got a contract here, let's honor it. Let's see if we can, I mean, the loan the money that we got in interest last month, surely they can give us the interest money and take care of this project here, you know. And I think they probably will.
Well, I guess, yeah. We have the improvement fund. Of course, we're going to nickel and dime it away, but we have the improvement fund up, which we can go back to the council and ask for the $40,000 at that point.
Well, we can just ask ARP money for it, I mean, really.
That's what the improvement.
Yeah. Do I?
That's what he just said.
Okay. Well, so in other words, really, we need to get the money lined up before we call them up and say, go ahead, right?
Well, we don't have to, we can award it, but we have to find the money.
I'm going to go to council next meeting to approach that.
Oh, we got a couple of line items to approach them with.
But
Whenever they meet.
I'll make a recommendation, put it on the agenda for the council, let me, or someone else, if you guys all want to go, but I'm saying I'll go.
I have no issue of approving this contract today with the understanding that we're gonna go ask for the 40,000 from the council. I mean, I think, Tim, you kinda hit the nail on the head. I mean, interest was, I don't know how much this last month, surely to goodness.
150,000.
I mean, surely they can, I would hate to see it taken from the improvement fund, cause as Britton stated, we will end up nickel and diming that account. So I'd much rather them just give us an additional for 40,000, so.
How about putting it this way? Why don't we approve the low bid subject to funding?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yep.
And then that gives,
But
and then if you're who's
how-
gonna find the funding? You?
Me again. I've got 3 now. That's 1 more.
Well, when's the next council meeting?
14.
Of August.
Am I off?
It's a month out.
Are you?
I don't know.
I'll make this up for you.
So is that a motion, Britton, to accept the low?
If you guys are agreeable, I'll make a motion that we'll accept the low bid of Ruth Riley, subject to funding.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion we already had, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One other thing on top of that, the RPE and the other I think are a little bit over. They're not a whole lot over, but you may want to consider that funding as well when we go finding it. There's $3,000 or $4,000 here or there. for
Okay,
that
why don't
as
we come up with that total figure? And then
well. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's about, I don't know if it's on here, but it's
Okay,
available.
so we're down to Bridge 31, right?
Yeah, it's out for bid and I don't know when that gets back. Is it 27th of this month? Something like that.
How are we gonna
It's
do
out.
that on funding? Is that
It's all part of this. What do you mean?
the funding for that bridge?
For the bridge? It's part of the
Okay,
community
that's
crossing
right,
grant.
that's right. That's the community crossing grant, okay, yeah, yep. Okay, so many bridges are hard to keep up.
I know. And
We're
what
moving
fund
on
it
to the
is.
engineer status. I will say that we are, I think Britain has talked to Park County too, and I think we're to that place. The decision will be made, I think here real shortly. I got a meeting with Commissioner Mr. Meese on Thursday this week, and hopefully we'll come out of there with an agreement. I think we've always been in agreement to do it. I think the county has been in agreement, and I think that Jim and the county have come together on, and hopefully have come to their agreement. Would you say that's true, Brett? That
Yeah, I
Park
think they're
County's
ready to move forward with it. My discussion with Jim was more about these cleanup things, but I did ask him about the engineers' status and where they stood on it. He said that they are ready to proceed. They had met with the 2 counties that had done this before, I guess.
Right.
Also, Jennifer with LTAP is willing to help identify an engineer or get it advertised anyway,
Yeah.
and identify someone that may be of interest to the counties. So I think we're at that point.
And you said that the thing that they was recommending was they in here 2 days a week, and over there 2 days a week and 10-hour days.
Yeah,
what
that's
they
the way the other counties operate, and they, again, it gets back, that's what they thought would be acceptable Park County. In other words, it'd be a 40-hour week, but 10-hour days, 2 days in Vermillion, 2 days in Park. Of course, that's a professional service. It can vary somewhat, but that's the basis of it. They're looking at, it potentially could be as much as 130,000 and 80,000 from the state.
Okay, well, I think we're moving positive on that, and I think it's going to be a great fit. I think that having an engineer 2 days a week will pay for itself many times over. And so
Oh,
we're
yeah.
looking for that. Document scanning, recording, library services. When we're on that, I think that we need to give an update. Last Thursday night, when did we have our IT meeting? Last Thursday night we had, and Brenda and Kylie and I met with the new IT board, and I was very, very, very impressed. There was one that couldn't make it, but the ones that were there really are going to be very, very valuable to our county to providing IT information. We've got some things that we need to address with John, that they've sent. They want to make sure that they're not held liable in any way, and I think that's something that's very important to them. But I was very impressed with them, and they started bringing stuff up and stuff that we did not know, right? And good points. And so we had a very positive meeting, and we would like for anyone in the courthouse or any of you all, if you got questions about IT, to send them to me or send them to Brenda, and we'll hopefully have a meeting every quarter or something like that. But it'd be up to them to set those meetings. One of the things they did talk about, but you're always in this printer stuff. They told us that one of the biggest concerns about security is printers, and most of the time, or not say most of the time, how would you say it? They'd say that is a real potential vulnerability of that, and so it kind of goes in with what you're trying to do with these printers. So I would. There's a company that you're dealing with, and I would like you to. I would like to get a letter from them about their recommendations of who they think is also, and we're asking them to be professionals to us, and I think that they ought to provide that feedback too, what they think about the different companies that are involved, because they deal with a lot of companies, and they know which companies I think that are good and which ones are. I'm just saying that we are having them IT people for this. Why not value their input, whether we accept it or not? But I'm saying, I think that's something that I'd like to hear from them.
Are you wanting them? We have a Jolly Come Late player, DocuWare from Toshiba. It's I don't know if it's a subsidiary of Toshiba or what, but I thought they were meeting me with the Toshiba printers and that type of thing, but it wasn't. It was called DocuWare. It's something that SBS Portals, it's the equivalent of what SBS Portals does. Whether they do it good, bad, or different, I don't know. But we have another potential player, or we can enter into some agreement with SBS Portals. They've signed our master services agreement. Did IT committee say anything about that?
I don't know.
We didn't talk much about the scanning as much as we did. We did talk about the printers.
And there is
We did have some recommendations.
and there is a lot of people in the.
I didn't hear you.
And it was not Toshiba.
As I say, a lot of people in the courthouse that have spoke to me, what's the company out of Terre Haute? Gordon Flesh, that they don't want to be tied down to one company with Toshiba, whoever it is, that they would like to keep whoever they're with. They say the customer service is paramount, even if the cost may be 10 cents more or whatever the cost may be. And I would take the recommendations of these office holders very.
I respectfully disagree. I don't know whether it's respectful or not. The problem that we have is that we've got contracts out there. Gordon Flesh, what happened with what's the name of the copiers they service or they're providing?
I have no idea.
Ricoh. The problem is Ricoh had this all done, and they had these service providers, of which Gordon Flesh is one of them. Then Ricoh decided to reorganize and said, we're not going to do this anymore. And then they just sent their machines out and said, okay, who wants these service contracts? And so they just went out wherever, and whoever raised their hand or bought into it is what happened. Gordon Flesh is a fine company, but you're based on one person there that provides those services. That person leaves, then you don't know what you have. And Ricoh is not necessarily the company that I would say that I would go with a printer service for.
Well, I just.
Now, Toshiba may not be the right one either.
Yeah, I just.
But that was who these gentlemen recommended.
With Ricoh?
Was Gordon Flesh.
Well.
We did not.
We didn't say anything about this.
Who do you know? What do you know about printers?
Yeah.
And who would you recommend? This Gordon Flesh was another company at one time. Got out. It's renamed.
I just know that I've had some.
And be happy to sit with them and meet with them.
I've just had some really long conversations with office holders, and I'm not in favor of. I don't want to say forcing, but making everyone use Toshiba or XYZ, whoever that company may be.
They did say there is a benefit in going one.
there is a large benefit
There,
of going.
I think the whole thing we're going at, we gotta look at the best of all of us and try to bring out, take,
I see both sides, but yeah.
you gotta take both sides and say, how do you come up with a decision that makes sense and applies to the issue? I mean, when I talked to them the other night, and they talked about security, one of the biggest things that they talked about security, I mean, it was like, it was big. You know, there's different things that are gonna be making suggestions, right, for security that will make us a better, and when they told me that these printers are the loophole or the place where everybody goes through, then that kind of made sense as how your process
Exactly,
that
yeah.
you're doing makes sense, but then also the process of how do you get the best one that
Service
works.
and all that.
So we gotta take all of it and make that decision. The point is that these printers need to be all together from a security standpoint, and also you need to get a provider that makes sense also. So that's just where I'm at.
I agree with y'all
Yeah.
with that, and I'm just not sold on Gordon Flush.
And we'll have more discussion about it and what
And I guess where I'm going is, it's not necessarily even Gordon Flush. Take them out, take Toshiba out and them out of it. The problem is being able to get a package that, and I don't really care, quite frankly, what the office holders want or not. They like whatever they get. They're not the ones that have to deal with this whole issue of the county costs and the county securities and this county printing. It's like having these desktop printers. Those are a big no-no too, of everybody saying, well, I've got my little printer here because I don't want to get up and walk over there to get my prints, whatever. Those are just as bad. But we've got to recognize that we're at risk of doing these things, and the more machines we have, the better service I think we'll get. Now, maybe Gordon Flush will be the one that comes out on head, but so far I've only heard of one person there at Gordon Flush that services these things, and so if he dies, retires, quits, or whatever, then what do you have? What's behind the person, I guess?
And the only reason why we here that went to the meeting brought it up because we sought their professional opinion, and these young guys are pretty sharp.
They're very sharp.
They are good, and they will be and I respect their decision.
But I agree with you, RJ, I agree with you, Tim. It's a combination of these things, but I don't think our office holders, I don't really think that they understand all these issues that go with printers and copiers and computers.
Well, I didn't
and
either.
access.
I didn't think about it either until it gave me a different perspective, because when they told me that this is a security issue, then I'm starting to went back to what you're trying to do, which makes sense. And then I hear, then how do we find the best service? And these office holders, they deal with these people all the time. They know what their service is. So, you know, I'm saying we're going in the right direction. We just need to come up with a decision that makes sense, and also from an economic standpoint, and also from security. And I think we're going there. We'll get there. We'll be fine.
And I agree. From what I gather here is that we're not ready for this scanning document yet. The problem we do have is that the clerk's office is hammering still, and I don't know how critical it is for her to get this stuff on electronic format, but we have some offices that are ready to do some things with it. The recorders are already still recording things. I'm not exactly sure where she's putting this stuff either.
Well, kind of.
It's on her CSI server.
Hmm?
It's on her CSI server.
It's on the county server then.
But it's not,
It's a different server.
yeah, it's not on a county server. It's on CSI, which is her, who she runs her documents through. It's on their stuff.
So it's in their cloud, not on our server.
Correct.
And they have the contract to take care of that, right?
Yes, and they do all their scanning and everything themselves. Now, once they get to their other books that don't open and you can't just take them apart and scan them, she may think differently, but right now they have a part-time person that does it themselves.
Okay. Very good. We're moving in the right direction on that.
So the answer is we're not ready.
No, we need more discussion, and
That's
we can
fine. I don't have a problem.
get a letter from them and let them, the IT people, voice, and we're making good decisions here. Miscellaneous county properties. RJ, was that your?
Yeah, I asked you guys to review those, and upon review on the majority of them that are on this first list, John, this would be a question maybe for you. A lot of these are old right-of-ways, you type in the parcel IDs, they're literally just a section off the road, and people's property literally, it'll cut off, and they're already maintaining it, you know, say it's 10 feet wide, 15 feet wide. I'd say a lot of these need to be, I don't know how we get rid of them, or see if we can get back to the landowner, I don't know.
As long as they're worth less than $1,000, you have pretty free discretion on how to get rid
But
of
do
them.
we make that decision on the value?
If they're more than that, then there's a statute that
Okay.
involves the council.
Well, there's several of these, they're all literally, one of them's like a section of a road that I don't know if it wasn't a road at one time, it's literally right in the middle of a road. But the majority of them looks like old railroad beds that going along.
There would be someone who could give you their opinion, who could look at
Yeah.
this and give you an opinion on what each of these might be worth.
Okay.
That would probably give you some guidance.
Okay.
There also may be mapping errors on some of these. It's the reason why they show up the way they are. Not necessarily, if they're not rectified with the adjacent property. Anyway, they may just be mapping errors also.
The other issue, do we have any liability at all? I mean, if we take a partial and say we sell it to John Doe for $100, I mean, when we give that to him, we walk away from any liability and it's totally theirs.
As long as we don't know that there's something wrong with it and sell it without disclosing it. But if we're just, hey, here's a piece of property out in the middle of the field that was an undeveloped road and we don't want it anymore, no, there's not going to be liability associated with
Can I
that.
suggest, RJ, that we move on to the ones that are not slivers next to roads and find
Yeah,
those parcels?
these here are pretty much, everything you have in your list needs to be set aside, and they're all literally next to road right-of-ways that aren't prudent, and the next list I'll send that out and you guys can review those.
And maybe we can send these, what about this idea of taking these ones that are slivers, if you will, I'll just call them slivers,
Yeah.
whatever they are, of actually putting them up for people to look at and say, wait a minute, that's my property anyway, or to...
Yeah, I don't know that, I don't think they're doing the county any justice, and most of these, what I looked at, they're not even real bad ditches, they're just right next to the road, and the landowners are already maintaining these anyway. The only downside is that if you try to give it back to the landowners, they probably don't want to pay more tax on, adding stuff to their property, so they probably will just tell you to keep them, that they don't want them. So that's the only downside.
Well, the only thing I would see would be a problem if you put it up for sale and then someone comes along and buys it, it's right in the middle of someone's property, and then they say, hey.
No, these 10 here are all right next to the road, and you can even see on the other parcels that it's even carved out for this little section. I mean, it's not big enough to do any type of building on. There's really no...
Too bad we couldn't notify the people that live there, the middle person.
I've seen that happen on Lake Monroe, though, where the Corps of Engineers came up so far and there was a parcel in there, and because you could get to it from the lake, people did that. Well, property owners that were on the other side said, wait a minute, what are you doing on my property? No, I own that little
I own this
sliver."
little sliver to just stop and take a break.
It's happened.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be something we can, offer to the landowners, but I've seen it in other counties, and a lot of them are like, nah, we're good, it's too small, we don't want it, and you can just keep it.
And no one's going to buy it, so you just keep it.
The county just keeps it. But I'll get the updated list from the treasurer's office on all the other properties.
Get on something that's more
That has a little bit more
substance anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to advertising community events. We talked about that last month, and I'm in contact with the Indiana Visitors and Tourism Bureau, whatever it is, and they put out a publication every year. We have come up with a list of different events, and it would depend upon the funding of how much. I think it was $12,000, $13,000 was looking for last time. And I would like you guys to give me permission to go ahead and move on that when I get it pulled together. Because I don't know what that deadline is. Like deadline's in the month
2
or
days,
so.
I think.
Huh?
2 days.
Well, that's kind of flexible.
I agree. I have no objection.
And there's probably going to be, and there's got to be some place where you make a decision based on, you can't do every one of them.
Did you see what Becky sent this afternoon to you?
Yeah, I seen it, but the list is long.
Well, she highlighted certain ones in there about looked like maybe $5,000–6,000.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of at least those. And I guess you can use your judgment if we have additional monies.
That's what I'm saying. I just want to make sure that if, with the deadline coming up, that you guys have no problem with me
fine
going
with
ahead
it.
and moving forward with it, making a decision without coming back. I can let you know when we get it done, let you see what you think. But I'm just saying, I'm at a deadline here, I wanna make sure that.
Yeah,
The
use
list
your
that-
judgment.
Yeah, the list that she sent, I have no objection to.
Okay.
Also, as soon as that's done, let's just make sure it's in the budget for next year.
Yeah. Well, that's something I told her today. I said, I can't promise you do it next year because if it's budgeted, you know, we don't wanna make this the other thing is that, community, they have done some of that in the past, and from my understanding that we're not gonna do it this year.
Do what?
The Community Foundation did some of those, right? And then this year, you guys did some of the sponsorship of the community, on the state
In the
tourism.
festivals book.
We've done all kinds, several things with that, yes.
But this year, you're not doing it anymore. So that's what I'm saying, is there's some there, like, there's
Sure.
some towns, I think, that maybe we ought to ask them to, you know, put in something in there to get it done. But I just want some space here with you guys' approval. I can go ahead and get this done without.
I have no
Go
objection.
for it. It's an operational thing. Do it. And there's at least the innkeeper's tax ought to be able to be used on it. I never did get an answer who can spend that money though.
Well, yeah, I still don't understand how it works either. But again, that's an appropriation thing where it's not been appropriated, so you have to have an additional. But what did you say? I'm sorry, I had to step out. $5,000 to $6,000?
Well, that's what was highlighted on Becky's. Was that?
But
5
we
or
was talking more
6,000?
like 10,000 earlier, I think, 10 or 12,
I know I
right?
can come up with 5 or 6.
Well, those are
Okay, that's why I need to know.
Highlighted.
What I'm saying is, if
I
she
know.
comes up with X amount
That's
of
fine.
money,
Go for it.
I'm gonna spend it according to what we think is the best, and we're not gonna get everybody. It's
As
not
long as it
gonna-
doesn't encroach upon my 30,000.
That's not your money.
Okay. So you guys, we're okay on it as we move
Put
forward.
that in the budget for next year.
Yes.
Announcements, we're gonna move on. Couple different things coming up. Got the boat race coming up, the 20, I can't get the date right. Weekend
Before we
before
go to
Labor Day.
announcements, though, I do have one other thing. I asked APC to give us a ordinance, a recommendation for ordinance for improved and unimproved alley and right-of-ways. We're having problems with a number of people in our four-wheel drives and everything else using unimproved right-of-ways, and people building out on taking ownership, if you will, of right-of-ways and not allowing other people to use right-of-ways. So there needs to be some type of understanding or guidance, I guess, in ordinance to specify how these alleys, especially the unimproved ones, and how the right-of-ways that are existing are going to be used or how they'll be handled. It's putting the sheriff in a bad position. He goes out there and tells people one thing or another, but eventually it's going to come to a bad conclusion on some of these parcels. So I'd like for us, I never did hear back from APC whether they're going to address it or not, so I'd like for the commissioners to request that of APC to start addressing these right-of-ways and alleys to
That will
provide
be,
ordinance.
we'll set a certain size, and then if they can prove otherwise by documentation, then they have the right to have it changed if they can provide other.
Well, these are most of these are inside established areas where it's already been platted. It's not that there's discrepancies necessarily. The problem is that to get my garage, I go up this unimproved right-of-way, and this guy gravels it and says you can't use that because that's my driveway. Well, that's driveway's on the right-of-way. There's just a whole, name an issue and it's out there.
I guess the first I'm hearing of it, is there issues that's happened recently
Yes.
that's involved the sheriff?
Yeah, there's ongoing issues, and it continues to build every year with other people of using these.
Are they?
right-of-ways.
I guess I just don't know of any of them. Could you highlight one, or from the sheriff, or is this is it in a certain
Larry,
area?
I don't know his last name. Over St. Bernice.
Okay.
I don't know if
What
I don't know
Britton's
that
trying
the
to do is
names
try
are
and get some
important.
clarification of people.
Well, I understand that. I'm just
Makes
saying I
sense.
genuinely have no idea about this because no one's said anything to me, whether the sheriff or the APC or anybody.
Well, that's where I'm not asking us to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm asking the APC.
No,
to
I
come up with
understand
some
that.
rules.
I don't understand. I just didn't understand there was all of these ongoing issues because I just didn't know about
It's
them.
like kicking the guy's dog. It's a problem. So But people are claiming right away and then using right away and then making improvements on right away and saying you can't use those improvements because I put it in there, but it's not your property, et cetera. So that's why I like for APC to address these alleys and
Yeah,
right of
I agree.
ways
I agree.
formally. And if they don't, then, well, hopefully they will take it under consideration. Penny ought to be able to address a number of them. They keep getting referred to her, and then the sheriff, they get referred to the sheriff because the sheriff has to go out and promulgate between the two parties as to either go home or don't.
Right.
But there's a number of communities. Anyway, now announcements. Thank you.
Okay, we have come to the end. Thank God. Anybody else got anything to say? Public comment? If not,
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion?
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. Meeting adjourned, thank you.